Hi, you're watching a very specially recorded session of Agenda AWANI right here, where the snow falls on your head. And believe me, I've been here 3 times. It's the most snow I've seen here. And reporters who've been here for the last 10 years say this is only the first or the second time they've seen that. So it must be a divine fate for that to be like that, because it enables me to meet great people still. And one of the great people from Global Shapers, Tiffany Yu. Thank you so much for making time.
Of course, thanks for having me.
Finally, somebody who looks more like me around. Okay, Tiffany Yu, all the way you can trace her family lineage back to Vietnam, but moved to America, the whole family. And I want you to tell your story your own way, because this is the first time the World Comic Forum has 7 co-chairs who are all females. At the same time, this is also the meeting or group meetings where you have every stakeholder almost represented in one place in the world. So you have your own cause, so please marry all that into your introduction.
Sure. So my story, I think, really begins a little over 20 years ago. My mom was traveling for a business trip. She was traveling to Taiwan, and a couple of my siblings and I thought we would see her off at the airport. My dad was driving at the time. And on the way home, my dad unfortunately lost control of the car. And as a result, he unfortunately passed away. And I broke a couple bones in my leg, and I sustained a nerve injury in my right arm, which is still with me to this day. This experience has driven a lot of the work that I do in the disability space, but it has also really made me celebrate this idea of intersectionality. Mm-hmm. I'm not just someone with a disability, I'm also a woman, I'm also Asian, I'm also American. Mm-hmm. And so what does it look like to have this complete narrative, right? And to be here at Davos with 7 women, what does that mean for me in this one aspect of my identity? Mm-hmm. And what does it mean for me to be here as a disability rights advocate to bring this platform to the places where we can really move mountains and people are making these decisions?
A lot of people sometimes dismiss World Comic Forum as a talk shop, but there's a lot of real initiative announced just within the last 2 days. For example, reskilling of young people to face the disruption of the fourth industrial revolution. I even see global centers for the networking of how to shape public policy to deal with the disruption. So they are real movement. But for you, I think this is the best platform, for example, to give spotlight to the causes that might be drowned by everyday life. Can you elucidate it that way for yourself?
Sure. I mean, I think of the theme, building a shared future in a fractured world. And if I think about the most marginalized and vulnerable communities, it really is the 1 billion people in the world who live with disabilities. Mm-hmm. And I have been told by a few people on the forum staff that this is the first year there's a series on the agenda focused on disability inclusion. Mm-hmm. And so building a shared future means incorporating and welcoming and talking about the issues and the opportunities that the fourth industrial revolution provides. Correct. But it also means not leaving anyone at the edges. Mm-hmm. And that includes people with disabilities, it includes refugees. In certain communities, it also includes women.
Mm-hmm. I think technology must also help bridge awareness. Sometimes not knowing gives that gap. In my own language, we have this old saying that says, tak kenal maka tak cinta. That means if you don't know someone, how could you love someone? So from that perspective, the movement, the initiative that you have done, how are you reaching out to make people see, finally, how you see things?
So there are 3 common mindsets of how most people think about disability. Number 1 is what's known as the medical model. Disability is a medical diagnosis. I am a patient. I go to the doctor to get treatment, to get cured, to get fixed. The second is what's known as the tragedy model. What has happened to me is so sad. People need to look out for me. People need to take care of me. There are very low expectations of what I need to do to be a human in this world. Correct. And then the third is what's known as the social model, which is the idea that disability is really a result of the environment and the attitudes of other people on our community. But what's missing from these three is the fact that they are all mindsets that are ascribed to the disability community without even asking us what we want. And so part of the work that I do is really exactly what you said. It's humanizing disability. We need to stop looking at disability as disability or ability, and instead as a human experience. So what does disability look like when it is part of your identity? It's not good or bad. You are not a victim. It is not rooted in shame. It's just part of who you are and how you see yourself, and part of the reality of how you live your everyday life.
Tell us how a typical day in the initiative of Diversability for you is.
Right. So as an entrepreneur, no day is the same.
Okay.
And as a millennial, I think we love the fact that every single day is so dynamic. But fundamentally, what we are trying to do is increase human-to-human, face-to-face interaction between people who don't have disabilities to come and have a seat at the table with people who have disabilities. That's really how you build empathy. So we do that either through our own curated events. We'll partner with corporations or with universities or with conferences to help facilitate that as well, or make sure disability perspectives are represented. Representation really matters, right? And so remember, you opened this interview saying, I'm glad that I'm interviewing someone who looks kind of like me. The thing is, I would love to see more people who look like me, who are Asian women, who have disabilities, represented in all different forms. And I think the one other thing I'll add is I think what is so interesting about the media is you have so much power to drive the narrative of what disability looks like, because we don't understand disability. And so we end up relying on stereotypes and the media. And so if we are continuing to share disability narratives that are very sad, that follow this tragedy model, then we're further perpetuating stereotypes rather than getting to know who we are as humans.
Okay, I have to go for the first break, but once we are back, I mean, what young people would not dream of working with Wall Street, for example, earning like things that 99% other population of young people in the world would not be earning, and then that's the life, like that's it, you know, I'm here, but not for you. You know, from Goldman Sachs to Revolt TV and all these things, because I know there's a lot of young people in Malaysia watching this show, and this is the show where you can go against the grain and still be acknowledged. And let's do that after this short break. What if you graduated from a very Ivy League kind of university in America, studied finance maybe, and then got accepted at Wall Street and worked with names like Goldman Sachs? I'm sure you would still be there, but not for my newfound friend. I hope we are new friends. Tiffany, tell me that decision to just leave Wall Street and do Revolt TV and maybe carry on something that you started way back in college.
I will say so much. I feel extremely grateful for all of the access and opportunities that I have been able to have, whether it's studying at a top-notch university, whether it was being given the chance to interview at Goldman. And the one thing that really shaped my experience was the fact that Goldman Sachs didn't treat me as someone with a disability. All they wanted was for me to get my work done. You can do that with one hand, no hands, two hands. Just the
get
work
it done.
product, yes. And it was the first place where I was in such a tough love environment that made me feel like everyone else had made me feel so fragile because I had this disability, because I had gone through this tragedy as a child. And this was the first environment where they saw me past that.
No sympathies?
No sympathy, but I needed that. And I feel like too many people with disabilities get too much sympathy. We kind of need a little bit of tough love to say, I see you for your potential, and so you become that because I believe in you. And Goldman Sachs was really the first place where I felt like I had mentors there and sponsors who wanted me to become the person that I could become. The decision to leave was hard, of course. Goldman Sachs to me was the dream when I was in college.
Yes.
And I got to a point, and I think it's a very millennial perspective, that as much as I enjoyed that experience, I was so curious what else was out there. And startups, you just mentioned the word startup, you mentioned the word entrepreneurship. I think that's aspirationally what we all want to do. Goldman to me was, I can't imagine a better place I could have started my career.
Okay.
And it was very serendipitous how the change happened. Someone I used to work with at Goldman ended up moving over to private equity and had invested in this company, Revolt. And they were looking for someone. And they knew this, my colleague knew that I was interested in media. So we put my name in. After, I believe, 7 or 8 months, it took a little while, I got the offer. And it was everything in my mind I could have dreamed of. And the thing about Revolt, it has a diverse founder, Sean Diddy Combs.
You said it like he's just anyone else. Come on, the guys back home are now jumping up and down. Okay, tell us a bit about Sean P. Diddy Combs.
He surrounds himself with some of the most exceptional people. During my time at Revolt, I was there for almost 2 years. I had the chance to report directly to the CFO.
Okay.
I worked with the CEO and the COO at the time, and all Harvard Business School, all either ex-banker consultant types, and it just gave me so much respect that a person of color was so respected and could create a company that could inspire so many people and create a movement around millennials and having their voices heard. And so really, working at Revolt was part of the inspiration why I thought I could relaunch Diversability. Because I saw how much they celebrated diversity. And when I started Diversability, they were some of my earliest supporters.
And it's nice to see someone beyond the stereotype. He's not a Hollywood big megastar, but somebody with a heart driving all this initiative. Did you see it also from that perspective?
I did. I think near the end of my time, they had announced that he opened a charter school in New York, and education is where access and opportunity begins. And so I have a ton of respect that he used the power of his voice and the privilege that he had been given to really create so much opportunity for a lot of other people.
Okay, all these names, Sean P. Diddy Combs or Goldman Sachs, Wall Street, I don't need to gloss them over. They are already stars of their own, given enough airtime on media. But you're the star that I want to talk about more closely now. As an entrepreneur, you're just like any other entrepreneur. People bootstrap, slept on sofas, squat at other people's places, whatever it takes. What was it for you? What was the experience beginning your own entrepreneurship journey?
So there is something in the millennial generation called the side hustle. And Diversability began as a side hustle. You have your day job, which for me was working at Revolt, and then you have your 9 to 5, and then you have your 5 to 9. And my 5 to 9 was Diversability. And it was hard. The way I ended up starting it was I made a list of everything I spent my time doing. And I said, if I really want to do a great job at Revolt, and I really want to see Diversability become a reality, I'm going to have to cut some things out. So I was very, no more late night birthday drinks. And I set the expectations as well. I think being an entrepreneur, you have to manage expectations that you are running a company. You're trying to get something off the ground.
There's many young Malaysian girls who are like you. I know of at least more than 10 who have really done very well, but they've gone through a lot. But for you, the finance side, it's easy, right? The Wall Street training, Georgetown education. What other aspect, apart from finance, that you think was the toughest nut to crack?
I mean, I will say finance is the
Still? Even with your background?
Not still. So what I'm super grateful for is a lot of the reasons why most startups fail is because they can't come up with sustainable business models. The way my brain works, I spent a decade studying and working in finance. It's the first thing I think about. okay, I want to create this social enterprise. Okay, I want to get people talking about disability. There is money in this because we are the experts on our human experience. I think the other hardest part is just finding your tribe of other entrepreneurs who understand. So my entire network is finance. It's the people I went to Georgetown with, it's my Goldman friends, it's all the other banks as well, right? We all banded together because we were having a similar experience. And so when I moved to the entrepreneurial world, I almost had to start from scratch because it's not just entrepreneurship, it's also social good. And a lot of times when you mix social good and entrepreneurship, it's like another layer. It's not just, oh, I'm building this app. It's, oh, I'm building this app and I'm having an impact on all of these people. There are people who are depending on what I have built. It is a huge responsibility. And it's not a privilege I take lightly.
One of the things I like being at the World Economic Forum is that you can meet anyone and come from any place on earth. But when you're there sitting and talking, you're talking about the same cause. And the thing about fighting for the cause before, it's like if I'm fighting for green, I have to fight the industry. If I'm fighting for the cause of the disabled people, for example, I have to fight City Hall for not having a ramp or whatever it is. But I think with your background and when the initiative of Diversability, you make them your friend to make things better. Can I put it that way? Yeah,
I mean, I think the way I think about it is, oftentimes when we look at the social good space, we're always trying to find something to fix. So with disability, there are some issues in physical infrastructure, mental health, and the impact of social stigma and lowered expectations, and employment, access to healthcare, access to caregivers. And what we're trying to do is we're just trying to really look at, again, who are you as a human? And how can we develop you as a human? And how can we connect as humans?
Correct, yes. Making people human is one thing. In that sense, what I'm trying to say is, I would like to borrow from some of the discussion here. It is we ourselves that has compartmentalized society and people and different groups of people.
Yes.
I think it was Shah Rukh Khan who said that everybody was born equal and the world is born equal in the sense. But now we make money out of trying to say, hey, let's go for equality. Actually, we were the one in the first place who started the inequality. So where I'm coming from is corporations now need to have a soul. It shouldn't be the case that I make my money first, then I think about sharing and equality, for example. So how do you think by having your social enterprise can infuse this into the giants of the old economy now transitioning into the fourth industrial revolution? Because we cannot afford the past few hundred years and the model that we have developed. It has killed Mother Nature in a lot of aspects. It has killed humanity in a lot of aspects. Do you think that social entrepreneurship is not an alternative, but actually like a good virus that should be infected into the global corporation? I'm just giving this to you.
I know, that's one way to put it. I mean, I think that social entrepreneurship is the new entrepreneurship.
Okay.
My entire career has been built in the corporate world. I don't think that they are the enemies in this case. There is a lot of power in money, and really what we need to think about here is, what do you do with that money?
Okay.
Right? And so I love the fact that we're here, right? And we have the opportunity to bring these issues to the forefront. And the truth of the matter is, you think about fractured world, you think about how we have compartmentalized a lot of issues. We have to start somewhere in order to get to the larger message.
Tiffany, I have to go for the last break, I promise you. But once we're back, I heard a bit of the old Wall Street Tiffany there. But I want to go to that Asian DNA. Tiffany, you've been to KL, thank God for that. And how would you reach out to our parts of the world? You know, it's nice to be in America, in Wall Street, visiting your alumni in Georgetown, but you've been to Southeast Asia. You see how millions of people still need this kind of causes and good work to be done. Let's network, Tiffany, at least in terms of thought leadership, to what we have in our parts of the world. And I'll see you in the next segment after this. You're still watching a very special recording of Agenda AWANI. Go and Google Diversability. Go and Google Tiffany, amazing, amazing lady. This is the year at the World Comic Forum. 7 co-chairs, all female, powerful ladies. And the theme of creating a shared future in a fractured world is very apt for you. You have reached that across people who are normal or disability. It doesn't matter, it's what you represent. But how would you carry that all the way, thousands of kilometers away to Southeast Asia? Because your DNA started there.
Doesn't it start with this conversation
Maybe.
here?
You tell me.
You know, I feel very privileged to have been born in the U.S. It has afforded me a lot of opportunities, and the disability conversation is very different in the U.S. than I'm sure it is in other parts of the world. I think if we can take these 3 existing mindsets, introduce this 4th one, we can start to scale this idea that disability isn't scary. It isn't going to spread to you. I think that's really how we do it. For me, it's really leveraging the Global Shapers Network. There are almost 400 hubs around the world.
Correct.
How can I connect with people in places I've never been to before, share the work that I've done, and see how they can incorporate it with their local expertise into their own communities?
Have you found that in your, in the journey of Diversability, sometimes it's all in the mind. Breaking that first barrier is breaking that barrier in your mind first. So maybe we talked just now about the media narrative. Maybe you can represent that, because in our parts of the world sometimes, dalam bahasa Malaysia, in my own country, it's called sudah jatuh di timpa tangga. Meaning you have fallen and then the stairs fall on you. You know, if you're poor and then you're disabled, that's double jeopardy. But you have broken through all that thinking.
Right. So remember when we were talking before about corporations as, these big enemies? In the U.S., the unemployment rate for adult Americans who can and want to work is over 70%. That is a very large number, unemployed. And so for me, working at Goldman, working for P. Diddy, that was also signaling to be a role model for people in my community that you can be an investment banker, you can run finance at a startup, you can start your own company.
Yes.
The opportunities are limitless.
The world is converging. What's political, economic, and social is now, the lines are blurring. So because of that, not that I like to ask it, because you are from America, everybody here is waiting for the closing speech. Your president is going to give his thoughts on the world. But so far, and I would like to take the word of the opening plenary from Prime Minister Narendra Modi. He's worried about countries around the world thinking of themselves first, being self-centered. And we've heard America first. We've heard how some countries are, I couldn't even say the word on public TV. So what's your view on American leadership in this fractured world?
I think I am interested to hear what my president has to say. I think that part of the reason why our world is so fractured is that we stopped listening. And so I grew up in Washington, D.C., and then I moved to New York, and then now I live in San Francisco. The political ideologies in all of these areas are pretty consistent with each other. And so I, in a way, am in my own echo chamber, right? And so to have our president, who I may not agree with many of his views, but there are other Americans who do. Why don't we sit and have a conversation about where that comes from?
I've always believed that the day we stop talking is the day we start fighting. And that conversation we have had, we would like to continue this. Maybe we call you from time to time. Technology is, is here, so I can Skype with you.
Maybe I come to Malaysia.
And then together we go to Indonesia. There's a bigger nation that we should network with. Thank you so much, Tiffany, but I will not let you go before I ask you this one thing. Giving back is very important, and it looks like you are giving back. You could have stayed at Wall Street, big address, but you don't. And give us your views, some final words on giving back.
Sure. There's a mantra that I follow, which is, it's not about you, it's about those who came before you and those who will come after you. I would not have been able to go to university or have all of these really incredible companies on my CV had it not been for the people who looked out for me. And so I need to pay it forward. And again, I think coming back to this whole idea of access and opportunity, the more access and opportunity we can provide to people with disabilities, to women, to people of color, to everyone, the better our world will be.
Thank you so much, Tiffany.
Thank you.
You inspire me, and I want you guys to be inspired, and that's why we have already worked with our strategic partner, PTPTN, to bring you this discussion all the way from Davos. See you in another episode of Agenda AWANI very soon. Good night and goodbye.